As far back as its discovery, Antarctica's resources have been sought after. First sighted and discovered by Russian ships in January of 1820, it is the last continent on Earth to not be mined, but it is also the only one without any central governance. Everybody knows the glaciers and thousands of kilometers of ice. What about what's under the ice? Antarctica has untapped deposits of valuable natural resources, catching the eye of major nations across the globe. So, while the exploitation of Antarctica's natural resources has economic incentives, the threat to the fragile environment and long-term stability of Antarctica as a space of international cooperation outweighs any incentives from drilling operations. Antarctica's land is a widely competitive space. Starting in 1908, 7 countries have made territorial claims to Antarctica, including Chile, Argentina, and the UK, all having overlapping claims, and many going through extensive mapping efforts to protect their claims. But then, what about this space? This is the largest unclaimed landmass on Earth, Mary Byrd's Land, and was named in honor of Naval Officer Richard E. Byrd's wife. When interviewed on his Antarctic exploration in 1954, he stated,
because it happens to be an untouched reservoir of natural resources. And, as the world shrinks with an ever-increasing acceleration, far-flung places once useless, like we thought the North Pole was, and no man's land, become very useful.
Following the boom in exploration and interest, on December 1st, 1959, the Antarctic Treaty was signed by 12 nations to ensure that Antarctica is reserved for peaceful purposes. Not wanting to risk Antarctica being used as a pawn in the Cold War, the US and the Soviets pushed hard to enact the treaty, as the treaty would freeze all territorial claims over Antarctica, stating, "No acts or activities for asserting, supporting, or denying a claim to territorial sovereignty in Antarctica." And with freezing the claims, the treaty would also state that Antarctica shall be used for peaceful purposes only, prohibiting any measure of military nature. Then, following the split views on the oil crisis of the 1970s, where countries looked to new places to get oil, CRAMRA would be signed and argue for mining in Antarctica. However, it was strictly opposed by Australia and France, who were under immense pressure from environmental groups, and public opinions soon pressured nations to ban mining. CRAMRA was one of the first attacks on the Antarctic Treaty, and would certainly not be the last. Following this, on October 4th, 1991, the Madrid Protocol was signed in the Antarctic Treaty. It would state, "Any activity relating to mineral resources other than scientific research shall be prohibited." In theory, this would reserve Antarctica for scientific and peaceful purposes, free of economic motives. But what differentiates Antarctica's treaty entirely from other international treaties is that nobody can govern or enforce in Antarctica, whereas other treaties are defined by international law. Stated by the British Antarctic Survey, Antarctica's environment is solely protected through the international cooperation. So is it really protected? And in 2048, the treaty will be scheduled to review, and with a 3/4 percentage in vote, any article can be subject to change. Leading to today, 55 different countries have set up research stations in Antarctica, including the US, Russia, and China. Of this, many of the land claims and research stations have been strategically set up in attempts to mature into sovereignty over land and resources. However, Antarctica's deposits would be extremely difficult and expensive to mine. Being secluded from the rest of the world, Antarctica is surrounded by vicious circumpolar currents, where temperatures from the Pacific and Atlantic mix, making transportation expensive and dangerous. Furthermore, Antarctica's ice moves, up to thousands of feet annually on the coasts. This is a problem because a large amount of the deposits are on moving ice. This would risk damaging drilling equipment and oil spills, devastating the ecosystems as chemicals and pollutants are released, as stated by Jorgen Stephenson. The freezing temperatures and seasonal daylight would make importing oil or any resources seasonal or expensive during summer seasons without sunlight for months. These difficult and uncertain mining conditions would make exporting any resources far more expensive than the markets and would have to be sold in the upper percentiles to be economically viable. So, if it would be so expensive and technologically difficult to mine in Antarctica, why is it still sought after? Why is it a problem? Many countries want their own deposits for stability and security, even if they have to pay more than market value, with Associate Professor Alejandra Mancicha stating that global pressure on natural resources in the Antarctic will only increase over the next few decades. Countries are becoming more nationalist in views, and rapidly expanding mining technologies project upwards of $6.2 billion by 2026 in autonomous mining. Today, international trade is on the decline, and less trade agreements are being made, with markets becoming volatile. With this, countries have lent to securing their own resources rather than international trade. Why import Chilean copper or buy Saudi oil when you can secure your own reserves? For example, this is prominently shown in US President Donald Trump, with him imposing international trade tariffs and goals to obtain Greenland for military and, more notably, economic resources.
Essentially, it's a large real estate deal. A lot of things could be done.
Trump's ambitions towards Greenland show the current political climate of nationalism as we're going into an era of strong global trade wars. The Antarctic Treaty has been under attack as many countries have started investigating Antarctica's resources for themselves. In 2017, the Russian government has made a report to investigate Antarctica's geological and mineral structures. It has since followed up in 2024, surveying upwards of 511 billion barrels of oil under Antarctica, valued at over $50 trillion at $100 a barrel, making it 10 times the North Sea's outputs. All of the surveying has been classified under scientific purposes, clearly circumventing the Antarctic Treaty protecting minerals. China has also been rapidly setting up stations in Antarctica to develop into political influence and rights to land and resources. Affiliates of China's Minister of Land and Resources has stated interest in exploring Antarctica's natural resources through the developing stations. China is more capable and credible in terms of concerns. It might one day look to exploit its footprint for economic and strategic advantage. Any base could be refashioned for military purposes, said Dr. Elizabeth Buchanan. Russia has since followed up as Vladimir Putin declares intentions of investing billions of dollars into Antarctic development.
Еще раз хочу поблагодарить всех, кто внес вклад в создание нового зимовочного комплекса станции «Восток». И желаю всем больших успехов. Причем во всех ваших начинаниях. Знаю, что на 25-27 годы требуется несколько миллиардов на продолжение этой работы. Решение.
This shows Russia's investment in maintaining a presence in Antarctica, as well as the potential of Antarctic resources. Nations need to step up and take responsibility in international cooperation. Being home to many unique ecosystems with 45 species of birds and 60 mammal species, ways to protect the last pristine landmass must be brought to attention. The looming economic incentives from drilling in Antarctica will lead to conflicts if we cannot find means of peaceful cooperation. The cooperation in Antarctica during the Cold War was an incredible stepping stone for the future, as the US and Soviets set their differences aside for peaceful alternatives. Competition over rights to resources and untapped wealth is nothing new throughout history. When a single nation disregards flimsy treaties regarding Antarctica, it will destroy the cooperation found between nations. Creating and maintaining Antarctica as a cooperative space will be no easy task, and come 2048, this will not be the last time you hear of the Anarchy.